RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, our first Iron Debate in, say, about a month, brought to you by Yamamoto Nutrition. Visit YamamotoNutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Unlike the previous episodes where we went with one topic, we're back to our three-topic Iron Debate. This show unofficially marks the beginning of RX Muscle's Iron Road to the 2017 Olympia. We are joined all the way from Australia by Lee Priest. You saw his live with, I'll say about 3 weeks ago, and gotten a heavy dosage of one of the most opinionated voices in all of bodybuilding. Speaking of opinionated, joining us from Rockland County, New York, King Kamali. You saw his live with a couple of weeks ago, and we said we would get him on an upcoming episode of Iron Debate, and we have him here to talk all things Olympia, and of course, the man they call Boss Number 2, John Romano. We're going to be joined in short bit by Dave Palumbo, taking care of some business down in the Cape Coral offices. Our first topic of debate is the return of Flex Wheeler. Now, this is a topic that we discussed in a previous episode of Iron Debate months ago, and it caused some ripples, it caused some waves, and some negative opinions from the man himself, Flex Wheeler, not appreciating some of the comments that were made on this episode. We have a new cast. We have Lee Priest. We have King Kamali. We have John Romano now. So Lee Priest, we're going to go to you first on this one. What does the return of Flex Wheeler, the legend, coming back to Olympia after a long hiatus, mean to you as a bodybuilder, a fan of the sport, and an analyst?
Well, I think it's great to see. I've known Flex all the years, competing with him and stuff. And, a lot of people have said a lot of stuff about him coming back, his health issues and that. But Flex is a smart guy. I'm sure he's been to the doctors. He's had all the approval to go ahead and do what he's got to do to get ready for this show. And I think it's one of those things, if you're a bodybuilder deep down, I think Flex always getting so many runner-ups at the Olympia. He's always strived to be Mr. Olympia. So I think he's got, he's probably got his health checked out. He said he can do it. So I think he wants that Olympia title, whether it be, he always wanted in the bodybuilding side, but now he's going for the classic physique side. So I think, he's not going to be happy until he gets that Sandow. So, like I said, I'm sure he's had everything checked out. So he's doing it. I'm all for it. As long as he's healthy and he feels good. Like I said, we don't know. We can speculate saying, well, he's had these, transplants before and other health issues. But like I said, I'm sure he's crossed all his T's and dotted his I's to go into this like he's going into it. So I think it's a good thing. And like I said, it's really up to Flex. And if Flex is healthy and he's the one who has his burning passion inside, I say go for it. And I'm all for it. I support him.
Lee, let me go back to you on this one just because, last year when you had the return of Kevin Levrone and it brought all sorts of excitement to the 2016 Olympia, for someone like you, does the return of Flex Wheeler after Levrone's return excite you as much as it did last year? If so, why? If not, why?
I think it really excites me. I'm just happy to see Flex still has that desire to compete and, get out there and, has the passion for the sports. I think with Kevin, because it was something different and Kevin was going back into the main show, everyone was wondering, we haven't seen Kevin for so long. What's it going to be like? How's he going to look? So there was all that speculation. With Flex, Flex is putting up a lot of pictures of how's he looking. And, Flex has always had that beautiful shape, beautiful symmetry. So going into the division that he's going into, I think he has a better chance than what Kevin did going into the open class. So seeing Flex going into this class he's going into, I see he has a good shot of actually winning it.
King Kamali, let's go to you because you did have some strong opinions on your episode of Live with about Kevin Levrone's return. What does Flex Wheeler's return mean to you?
I am almost identical to what Lee just said. I'm curious. That's the main thing with me. I'm just curious as to what he's going to look like on stage and how he's going to compare. For me, it's not about Flex, the legend, and Flex Wheeler, and him always being second place and all that. For me, it's more about his health. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, when you pull the water, that takes an extreme amount of pressure on the kidneys. Am I right there, John? Yeah, it's the kidneys, right? So when you're pulling water, it's a kidneys issue. He's already on borrowed time with the kidney. So that's what I'm more worried about than anything else. Being Flex Wheeler and seeing him on stage and what have you, yes, of course, I would like to see him up there showing off and all that. But there's one thing that Flex can, and I made this point the last time that I spoke to Dave. What's he going to do about his skin? See, it's a skin issue. when it comes down to when you go over 50, you can't reverse the skin. You can reverse a lot of things with a lot of the enhancements and the drugs and what have you, but the skin is not going to come back. So when he's standing next to Bumstead, is that his name?
Yeah, Chris Bumstead, Breon Ansley, Arash.
It's going to be a night and day difference, almost like what Darum is looking like right now. Darum is coming in unbelievable shape. He looks fantastic, and Darum has always had that classic physique. But he looks like an old man standing next to Arash, even though he might be a little bit more cut and he might have a little bit more of this. For me, it's more the health thing. And I got to say one thing else here. Robbie Lopez gave me a call, and Wheeler called him and said he doesn't want me to talk about him on this show. Well, I don't think Flex knows me as well as he thinks he does. I'm not saying anything bad about Flex. First of all, I'm going to speak my mind no matter what. So sorry, Flex, and sorry, Robbie. But this is an opinionated sport. We get judged on the way we look. So if Flex doesn't want me to judge on the way he looks, then he's in the wrong sport. You see what I'm saying? So I agree with Lee in the sense that Flex, legend, Hall of Famer, and curious, and I wish him the best of luck in the world. Just do it safe, man, and make sure you're just doing this to make sure this is for you, and you're doing it not because you want to go out there and prove to the world something, but for yourself. Okay, just make it for yourself. That's where I stand on Flex.
We welcome in Dave Palumbo. Dave, you're taking care of some things in the office. We're talking about Flex Wheeler. I want to go back to you because we discussed Flex Wheeler on a previous episode of Iron Debate. It had Boston Lloyd, it had Greg Valentino, and it brought about some negative opinion from Flex Wheeler. You had a bit of an interaction in Germany. Why don't you refresh the audience a little bit more about that and what he said about the episode?
Yeah, first of all, I'd love to know how Flex even knows that King Kamali is going to be on our show talking about him. I don't think we told anyone, to be honest with you.
Not yet.
How the hell did Robbie Lopez? Robbie Lopez knows everything.
I might say something to Lopez, and Lopez might have said something to him, but that might have.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, what happened was we had a show when Flex first announced that he was going to do the Olympia, and it was, I believe it was Boston Lloyd and Greg Valentino on the show, and I guess Flex, when I saw him in Germany and I went to say hello to him like I always do, he was mad because I had that show, and it wasn't anything I had said. I guess he didn't like the fact that Valentino and Boston Lloyd were making goofy jokes about him or whatever about the comeback, and so he was mad, and I don't know. We know that Flex has a very he's very sensitive. He has very thin skin about things like that. My worry about the Flex Wheeler comeback is that when I watch a legend come back in any sport, whether it be Michael Jordan in basketball or Ali when he had some of those later fights, you're rooting for them so hard, and you know they're just not going to do it, and you just know they don't have the same gifts that they had when they were in their prime, and it sometimes it hurts to watch. I'm looking at Flex, and sometimes I see him when he's training in the gym. Johnny's playing some footage now. He looks really good. And I'm like, man, this guy's good. But like Levroni, we have not seen his legs once, okay? I know his waistline's good. His skin even looks all right. Then sometimes we see some pictures of him, and he looks kind of, frail. Like his forearms are a little thin. But he always was the master of illusion. And King, you could attest to this. How many times were you backstage at Nationals and you saw guys that looked like absolute crap, and then on stage they win the show, and you're like, how the hell did this guy win the show? And you look at the pictures afterwards, and he looks amazing. But backstage, they just look like nothing. So Flex is a master of illusion. I know he'll look good. His upper body's going to definitely look good. Will he have the wheels? That seems to be the thing that really hurts the guys over 50 years old. The legs just are not there. I just hope it's not one of these things where we watch and we're like, yeah, we want him to win so bad, but he just doesn't have it,
John Romano, I want to go to you because Lee and King both said the underlying point that they want to see this. They want to see the comeback, but they want to see Flex Wheeler do it in a safe manner. In your opinion, can he do what he's trying to do in a safe manner?
Well, my opinion about this has not changed from day one. It's first and foremost about his health. Can his kidneys and his kidney withstand one kidney? Can his kidney, withstand, a contest prep? it's like King said, it's rough on your kidneys to dehydrate to the degree that you have to. The thing of all these comebacks is that when you say the name Flex Wheeler, to us, of course, we know Flex, so we see him periodically where we're familiar with him, and it's a different connotation in our mind when we hear his name than the guy in middle America who's a bodybuilding fan who remembers Flex Wheeler from back in the day. And that's the majority of the people following this are hoping to see Flex Wheeler from 1998 come on stage, and they're not going to see that. Like King says, the skin is going to be an issue. He's 50 years old. I mean, he's not going to be the Flex Wheeler from when he was in his early 30s, mopping up the Olympia stage. So the expectation for these comebacks, and we saw it with Kevin, is going to be so high, and we want so bad to see these guys because they represent that era of the best ever of bodybuilding, the 90s bodybuilder. And we want to, and it's always in our mind, if the guys in the 90s came back today, they would clean up. But they're not going to come back today like they looked in the 90s. They're going to come back today looking like 50-year-old men. So, if anybody can pull this off of the stable of guys willing to do this, I think Flex has one of the best chances of anybody doing this. I think genetically he's gifted beyond belief, and if there's a guy that can pull this off, it's him. But the expectations are so high that even if he comes in looking amazing, we're all going to look for the 98 Flex, and we're not going to see it.
Lee, I want to go back to you because you did mention the fact that there is a difference between Kevin Lebroni's and Flex Wheeler's comeback in the sense that Flex is coming back in the classic physique division. So two things. One, classic physique, does that open the door to bodybuilders making this kind of a comeback, which may not necessarily be available in the open class? And then two, in your opinion, comebacks, somebody takes a decade-long plus hiatus coming back. Is this good for the sport?
It's like John said, you're always going to think back to how they look when they were at their best. So, people are going to have that image of Flex in his mind from back in the 90s, and when he comes out on stage this time, I'm still happy to see him, but still you're going to be picturing those big round delts, the fullness he had, and all that sort of stuff. So seeing him now is going to be like maybe a watered-down version of that, but I'd be still happy to see him. And I think for people like Flex, the classic physique for his comeback is great. There are some bodybuilders from back in the era who, even if they dieted down, they wouldn't really fit into the classic physique because like someone like Marcus Rule or someone making a comeback to the classic physique just ain't going to happen. So, for people who are like on the smaller side or just had that more pretty lines to their physiques, I think something like the classic physique for a comeback is good for them. But like you said, you're still competing against younger guys who are going to look fresher, look younger, the skin tone, everything, and the fullness. So, like I said, it's going to be one of those wait-and-see things. But like to us, we're going to be still picturing Flex, the old Flex. So seeing this new version will be interesting. So, like I said, I still wish him luck. And, of course, he's with Black Skull, who I'm with, so I've got to be 100% behind him. So,
King, let's go back to you. Your thoughts on comebacks in general, especially when we're talking about bodybuilders that have not competed in over a decade coming back to the bodybuilding sport's biggest stage?
The legs. And I think any bodybuilder would tell you right now, it's the legs. Legs are the first things that go. And if you stop training your legs heavy, they will not come back. Kevin's killing himself. I saw a little video of Cutler yesterday. He was like, yeah, we all love seeing Kevin squat 600 pounds again and all that, but that's not bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is about the pump, and that's weightlifting. Kevin is weightlifting right now. That's fantastic, and he's always been strong. He's got to be careful. He's always been strong, but the legs, that's what I would say. Can the legs come back? If the legs come back, that's why Flex is not, believe me, if Flex had legs, he'd be showing it right now. That's the key. If he had it, he'd be showing it. And so where are the legs? Again, man, it all comes down to, I like the comebacks. I think it's fantastic. And there are some people out there that, believe me, as much as I hate Sean Ray and I think he's the biggest douche on the planet, I'd love to see him come back and see what he can do in the 212 division. I think he would actually do pretty good with that. Sean had the best skin ever in the sport of bodybuilding. That golden skin. And Sean will be someone I'll be interested in. Francis Benfato, I think right now still looks pretty good. I've seen pictures of him. Another guy who'd be classic. But to stand next to the monsters, we're going to talk about Ramy, right? Okay, the Ramys or the William Bonnick. I mean, come on, man. I mean, these are on another level of shit that we're talking about here. And if you you stop training for a few years, you're just not going to come back to that, especially in the bodybuilding. Men's classic, you still got a little bit of shit. There's a little bit of leeway there, but not bodybuilding.
John, again, we talk about the topic of comebacks, and last year was Kevin Levrone and drummed up so much excitement. Do you think there is a more tepid response this year for Flex Wheeler because it is classic physique, and that Flex Wheeler, from what we remember him, is not going to be setting again today against today's mass monsters like the Phil Heaths and the William Bonacks?
I don't know. I think one of the most successful comebacks in recent history is Lee Priest. You know, he happened to come back and win the universe. So, you know, it's, I mean, I don't think the fact that it's a classic physique contest makes as much difference as it does, you know, what Flex can actually put together. I think the fact that it is classic physique suits him because he was not ever, you know, a monster like Dorian or, you know, you know, any you know, Cutler or Ronnie. But, you know, for his size and his shape, like Lee said, you know, he's got those pretty lines. I think classic physique is great for him. But, you know, the idea that the comeback is so, you know, implausible. I mean, Lee, how long did you take off until you came back?
8 years.
All right, 8 years. You know, that's a pretty long run without competing. You know, would you have called that a comeback?
I don't know. People said it was Nabbit, John. Nabbit don't count.
Before I want to go around the panel real quick, but Dave, I want to go to you first on this one. Again, your thoughts on just the fact that, again, it's classic physique. It may suit Flex Wheeler's style a little bit more, but from the overall perspective of the excitement that Kevin Levrone brought last year and the fact that he was going to go up against the Phil Heath, that's how it was built. It was, what was it, the past versus the gift. Do you think that's applicable to this year's Olympia with Flex Wheeler being that ticket item?
I'm going to tell you what, you know, and I'm going to credit Chris Aceto with this because we were just talking about this the other day. Chris pointed out, and he's 100% right, Flex was so dominant on that bodybuilding stage because of his proportion, right? His proportion was so incredible because of the amount of size he carried on his upper body compared to the size of his joints and his waist. At classic physique weight of 210, I think that's his limit, or so 205, something like that, he's not going to be able to carry enough mass on his body to have that crazy, disproportionate upper, you know, round-bellied muscles to small joints. It's not going to look as extreme, the difference. And because of that, he's not going to look as crazy on stage. He'll still have the detail, yeah. He'll still have the small waist, and obviously he's one of the best posers out there. But he's not going to have that wow. You know, he's bigger, believe it or not. You know, and I think 210 is a very low weight for Flex, especially at his height, to be able to display that wow that he had in the past. So even if he has enough balance to his body, will he have enough size to really outmaneuver some of these other guys in the division that have maybe a little more than he has? And that's the question that we won't know until we see him up on stage, and that's what makes the Classic Physique Olympia that much more exciting. Because even if Flex doesn't do well, we still have a whole bunch of new guys that are so exciting out there. It's just adding another layer to the show already.
Let me go around the horn real quick. Quick answer. What defines success at the 2017 Olympia for Flex Wheeler? Lee, let's go to you first.
I think that's him coming back, being the best he can be on that given day. You know, whether he wins or loses or where he places, I think Flex just coming back for himself and having a good time, enjoying it, looking the best he can. I think that would be a success for him.
King?
Same thing. Everything Lee just said.
John?
Not dying. That would be good. You know, I would chalk that up to a success. You know, I mean, in all seriousness, actually getting stage ready with his, you know, limitations, I think is a victory right there. You know, to be able to outsmart that you know, impediment and get himself shredded and hard on stage. I think it's a victory right there. I think if he accomplishes that and comes in hard and crisp with all his body parts intact, I think he'd be definitely in the top 5. So it's I think success is him making it.
Dave, final word on this one. Flex Wheeler, success, the definition of success in this Olympia.
I think Flex, being the competitor that he is and seeing what happened to Ramy last year, I think success for Flex would be top 5. Or top 6, I guess that would be placing at the Olympia. I believe that Flex wants to place to show that even after all the years off, even after the kidney transplant, that he can come back at over 50 years of age and place at the Olympia. I don't think he's delusional in the sense that he thinks he can win, although you got to think number 1 when you go do any show. But I think a top 6 is success for Flex in his mind, and I think it's a success. I think all of us would agree if he did crack that top 6 that we would have to bow down to him and say, yo, bro, you did it, because that no one's expecting that.
I think he can do it. I think he's going to crack the top 6. Not in the classic physique, he can do it. But as Romano said, if he lives, let's just his health.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's going to kill. I don't think he's going to destroy a kidney from doing one contest prep. It might not bode well long term. Maybe, I don't know if he's going to damage it at all. But I don't necessarily think if he does one run, he's going to have a problem. But obviously, if this is a one-time thing, I think that it's pretty safe what he's doing. I think that will Flex be satisfied with the way he looks? Because he is. Look, we're all very critical of ourselves. We all want to do things. We all want to be winners at some point. We want to prove to the world that we're better than what people think we are. And I know Flex is much more. Lamroney's like a party guy. He's like, well, I got back there, but I got on stage. I made a lot of money doing all these guest postings and tours, and my product line's doing good. I think Flex for himself really wants to do this because he wants to show everyone that he still got it. And I hope he does it because I'm a big fan of his physique.
You're watching Iron Debate on RxMuscle.com. This is the, official mark to the beginning of the Iron Road to the 2017 Olympia, brought to you by Yamamoto Nutrition. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. We now move on to our second topic, and that is Phil Heath. Phil Heath looking to go for what will be his 7th straight Sandown. Now, last year, it universally praised for the way that he came out and looked absolutely phenomenal, that nobody on that stage was going to touch him. 2 previous years, however, it wasn't seen that, well, Sean Roden could have had him on a given night. Kai Green could have had him in 2014. Last year, however, he did silence a lot of the critics, a lot of the critiques, and he came out and put on an absolutely stunning display. So that kind of leads people into thinking, what about this year? What about 2017? Is there any stopping Phil Heath? Can he be beat? King Kamali, what say you?
I think he can. I think this year is going to be the year that everybody's going to be surprised. I said it last time today. I said if Cedric comes in 4 to 5% sharper, he's going to give Phil a run for his money. So Cedric has that balance, that beautiful shape, and the size, and that height, and massive look on stage that Dennis Wolf had at one point. That's what he has. I think this. Listen, Phil is. I know a lot of people like to rag on Dexter, especially Dave. Dave doesn't like Dex, but I thought Dex beat him. He came after prejudging. I had Dex winning it a couple years ago, and then and then Phil came back and then he won it at the finals and what have you. But I don't think the guys are afraid of him anymore. I think that it's that fear factor is gone. Like I said, the whole Mike Tyson thing. Once the fear factor with Mike Tyson was gone, he was beatable. I think these guys they legitimately think they can beat him.
Lee Priest.
Yeah, anyone can be beaten on any given day, and with Phil, like I said, sometimes he comes in looking that good, you think he can't be beaten, but then, like I said, if he just slips up a little bit, someone like Cedric or anyone on any given day, I think it's like with Kai. Kai had all the mass in the world he needed. All Kai needed was that granite hard look that Dorian used to bring in, and Kai could have easily beat Phil. So people are thinking they've got to play this size game against Phil all the time when there's so many guys now like Cedric and them that have the great physiques, have those muscle bellies that if they just come in super crisp and dry, they can easily beat him. And I'm still on the thing too where, okay, Mr. Olympia, you can do that one show a year, whereas other guys are competing throughout the year to get in that show. I'd still love to see everyone have to compete at least 2 or 3 times a year. Make it better for the fans, the promoters, all throughout the year. Whereas that way, Phil can see what it's like to compete a few times and then go into the Olympia. He might be a bit more tired then. So, just make it more fun, get the people out there more. But yeah, Phil can be beaten. Anyone can be beaten. So, but you know, going in as the champ, you always seem to have that little bit of an edge being the champ. So it's like they say, to knock the champ off, you've got to come in looking that great. And someone like Cedric Gadet, if they come in super dry with the fullness and that, yeah, Phil can be beaten.
John Romano, let me rephrase it in this perspective. If Phil comes in like he did last year in 2016 to this 2017 Olympia, can he be beat?
I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm saying no is, let's go back to Haney, Coleman, Yates, Cutler, all Mr. Olympias who won multiple times, who on a given year, each of them won when they didn't deserve to win, several times. So, you know, we should by rights have a Nasser El Sambate, Mr. Olympia. We should have a Rich Gaspari, Mr. Olympia. We should have a Kevin Laroni, Mr. Olympia. We should have a Flex Wheeler, Mr. Olympia. We should have a Victor Martinez, Mr. Olympia. You know, so these guys legitimately could have won on those days, and they gave it to the incumbent. So, you know, I just, for sitting watching these shows for the last 30 years and how they unilaterally give it to the current Mr. Olympia, it's just foolish to think that anybody else is going to snag it from him, because it never happens. It happened to Samir. It happened to Samir, and it happened to, you know, Coleman was off one year, and or Cutler was, and, you know, Dexter snuck it. So, you know, it just doesn't happen. So if Phil shows up, look, Phil didn't deserve 3 of his last, you know, 6 wins. Okay, so he got him anyway. Why am I going to sit here today and say, yeah, oh yeah, he can get beat? He's not going to get beat. All he's got to do is make it out of the cab. Then he's won the show.
Well, we're going to bring up some of the more likely contenders to take his throne. But Dave, I want to pose the same question to you. In the sense that if Phil comes in the way he came in last year, can he beat? Do you see anyone beating him in that same shape that he brought last September?
Look, when the Mr. Olympia comes in the best shape of his life, he never loses. We've seen that. That's really historically what John's referring to. Then they, you know, every once in a while they have an off year and they throw him a bone. I think Phil has gotten too many bones already, so I don't think they're going to give him another bone. Coleman got a bone one year, and then they took the title from him when Cutler beat him. You know, Dexter beat Jay that one year he was off, even though Cutler got a bone the year before that. So I don't think, you know, they're not going to. I think Phil used up all his lifeline, so to speak. I think now it's, you know, every year he's got to be his best. If he brings what he brought last year, he'll be very difficult to beat, because he'll be the reigning Mr. Olympia, and he'll be at his best. If he comes in a little off, now we have to try to figure out who's right there. Now, I know King Kamali, I know for some reason people think I don't like Dexter Jackson. I absolutely do like his physique a lot. I just don't think he's a physique that knocks off the wow guys. He's the guy that's there, dangerous as hell, and when the wow guys are a little off, he slips in there and he takes the victory. That's just been Dexter his whole career. That's called consistency, and that's one of the most important things in bodybuilding, is to be consistent. And Dexter is the most consistent guy, by virtue of he's been around the longest, and by virtue of the fact that he has the most wins, and he's won every title, including the Mr. Olympia. So, of course, he's one of you know, he's going to go down as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, just because of those records that he holds. Now, that means that if Phil's off a little bit, Dexter's right there, and Sean Roden is right there. Sean Roden, okay, I think when he's at his best, he can beat Dexter at Dexter's best. I just think he's got more wow to his physique. He's got more tools in the arsenal. So once again, we always say, what if everyone's in shape? Well, no one's ever, it never happens. I've never seen one Olympia where everyone was in shape. Although the 98 Olympia was pretty close. Everyone came gunning for Dorian's vacated title. I think Roden is probably the most dangerous guy in the top 6 right now, if Phil is off. I think Dexter's right behind him, and I think the wild card is Big Ramy. Will he come in shape? Who the hell knows? We've been speculating for 4 or 5 years, or 3 or 4 years now, about Ramy, and he's yet to bring his best. Last year was about the closest he came when Chris Aceto was helping him. So I think that Roden and Dexter have to be the 2 most dangerous guys on that stage. If Phil is off, if he's not, I think it's a foregone conclusion.
We're going to be talking about Big Ramy in the next topic, so let's save the comments on Ramy for now. But again, talking about the main threats to Phil's throne, you have to consider Sean Roden, who many in 2015 thought won the show. King brought up Cedric McMillan coming off fresh off his win at the Arnold Classic. And then, of course, you have other guys like Big Ramy, William Bonac, Dexter Jackson, Justice Jackson, who stood side by side with him in 2015. King Kamali, let's go to you on this one. Of those 3 or 4 names, who do you see as the biggest threat who viably could knock off Phil Heath and his quest for 7 seconds?
I still say Cedric. Now, Sean Roden, if he comes in and at 100%, Sean needs a back. Mr. Olympias are one from the back. Okay, you can have a great front double bicep, which he does. Side shots, excellent. All that stuff, fantastic. You turn to the back, you hit a back up bicep shot, everybody in the audience will say, oh, there goes Phil. It's number 7. Needs a back. Who can Cedric with his size? Again, I think the problem here is, where a lot of people are discrediting, putting Cedric aside, is he has a bad reputation for his Olympia appearances. He always comes in off at the Olympia. Okay, that's why I keep saying 4% sharper with that fullness, like his muscles are popping, his skin's about to burst. If he does that, I think he will become the people's champion. And Lee knows about that. When you're the people's champion, the judges have that monkey sitting on their shoulders. You know what I'm saying? And Branch Warren, again, second place at the Olympia. Branch Warren, second place at the Mr. Olympia. Why? Because he was in great shape and he was the people's champion. You know what I'm saying? So, again, you got to have it back. Dexter is always dangerous. Yes, I agree with what Dave says. If somebody's a little bit off, Dexter is right there. Boom. But I always go back to Cedric. I think he can do it.
Lee Priest, do you agree with what King is saying? And further, your nomination for, I guess, the biggest threat to Phil's throne?
It's hard to say nomination because, like you said, there's a few up there. Like I said, if Phil's at his best, like David said, it's hard to knock the champion off at his best. If he's a little bit off, then it's open slaver to whoever else comes in, whether it be, Victor, whether it be Dexter, whether it be whoever. Because, it's bodybuilding. On any given day, if anyone shows up in their greatest shape, there could be somebody that we're not even thinking of right now who might just turn up and blow everybody away. Because, we've seen a lot of photos leading up to shows. You used to see Ruley or Dennis James, and you look at some of these before photos thinking, this guy's going to be top 3 for sure. Come the day to show, you're like, what the fuck happened to him? They just look totally different. So, it's just one of those things. I'm giving Dave even photos a week out, you're thinking this guy looks incredible, and then everyone's got to do their fucking magic hocus pocus that last week to try and get fuller, get harder. God knows what they do, but a lot of the times it fucks up. So until the day of the show, like I said, it's hard to say. And then you have the prejudging and the night shows always separate. And we've seen so many guys who feel might be off of prejudging. Someone looks so much better. Come the next show, next day at the finals, he could be a little bit better, but the other guy's still better, and yet you still can't beat him. So, this saying someone can improve the next day, but generally, once it's set in stone, it's hard to beat the champion even if he's off. So, I'll just wait for the day to show and see what happens, because, like I said, we always come up with predictions, thinking who's going to go here, and then, like we've seen before, someone can be looking better than Phil on the day and still not win. So, it's bodybuilding, it is what it is, and as King said, being the people's champ can help you out a lot, because I know a lot of times those judges hated me, but here in the crowd you're probably thinking, fuck, we can't screw him too bad. So, so I was always happy to get a top 6 or top 5 anyway.
John Romano, before the Arnold, I asked for predictions, and you told me that you were not going to give predictions because you didn't know what everybody looked like. But on that note, given what you've seen over the last few years, with Cedric's appearance at the Arnold, winning it this past March, Sean Roden, what he's shown you consistently over the last 3 Olympias, Big Ramy and his fluctuations over the last couple of years, you look at the cream of the crop that could theoretically dethrone Phil Heath. Who do you see as the biggest competitor to Phil's reign?
Yeah, I don't give predictions, but to me, bodybuilding is bodybuilding. I want the biggest, most ripped guy to win. So that's why I've always been a big Ramy fan, because look, the guy's 300 whatever pounds. I mean, if he pulls it together and comes on stage, who could beat him if you're gonna really judge a bodybuilding show like bodybuilding? So You know, even at that size, his lines are good. I mean, I never, to this day, I still don't understand the fascination with Phil Heath. I think he's got narrow clavicles. I think his arms overpower his body. I think he's got a ton of flaws, and he certainly does not deserve 7 Mr. Olympias in a row to this date. So the fact that he's got him, I think, is indicative of what's going to happen in the future, no matter who shows up. And you know, it should be the opposite. It should be the reigning Mr. Olympia should have the most to lose, should be judged the hardest, and never be tossed a bone. It's better if you knock him out, and it makes the show more exciting next year if you know he's coming back to win his spot back. You know, but if we've been fed for decades the fact that the reigning champ always wins. So what are we going to? Why are we going to expect anything different? No matter how anything different today, no matter how great, you know, Sean Roden looks, or Cedric McMillan, or how big and ripped Big Ramy is, it's not going to matter. It's just not.
Let me ask you. I got a question for John. I'm just curious, John. Who wins 100% Nasser El Somebody or Phil Heath?
Nas?
Who wins 100% Ronnie Coleman or Phil Heath?
Ronnie.
Okay, I could go on and on with the '90s guys. You get my point? It's Phil. Lee understands. These guys, I had their pictures in my lockers, and I was like, I'm fucking a human being. It's this look not possible, you know. And they're cartoon characters. And again, I agree and I disagree with John. You know, yeah, Phil Heath has flaws, but he's been the best because there has nobody been closer to him. You see what I'm saying? If those '90s guys were here, oh my God, man! I mean, Flex Wheeler, 100% Flex Wheeler against 100% Phil Heath. It'll be really fucking close. You know what I'm saying?
But you know, last year, okay, arguably last year, Phil, you know, came in great and looked good. Year before that, the year before that, he was hands down not the winner. They gave it to him. Sean should have won that show. I mean, you know, Dexter should have won that show, and they didn't. And they were. Kai was better than him, 2-3 years ago. So, you know, these guys were legitimately better than him on show day. Phil is not that great. Yeah, he's that great because he's up there all the time. So it gives you the implication that he's great because he's 6-time Mr. Olympia. But I don't believe he deserved them all. So it would have been better. It would have been better moving into this show. What would have been better? You have a 3-time Mr. Olympia, Phil Heath, going up against Mr. Olympia, Dexter Jackson, Mr. Olympia, Sean Roden, Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy, or who? I mean, a 3 or 4 or 5 Mr. Olympias trying to get their title back. That's fucking exciting. To see the same fucking guy come back, known for 30 years, we always give it to the same guy every year. What's exciting about that? I rather watch put the show on pay-per-view in my hotel room and do something else while they're competing and just get the highlights. It's not exciting.
Lee, let me go to you with that one as well. Do you feel that Phil Heath deserves to be 6-time Olympia champion?
No, as John said, there's a few years there where he shouldn't have won, but it was just a gift to him. So that's probably why he's called the gift. So he's had so many. And that's not taking nothing away from him, but like I said, there's so many. Like I said, Kai should have won that year. I think that time he came up against him, and there's been so many times where Phil hasn't been the standout winner, but it's still gone to him. So it's not, well, I say the judges are lazy, but I think once you're Mr. Olympia, you've got your foot in the door before the show even starts, which is a sad thing, as John said, because you wouldn't want to go to any other sporting event and that, and know who the champion's going to be. I remember when I used to watch the Formula One and Schumacher was always winning, and he'd wrapped up the championship with still 6 races to go. So the last 6 races were so fucking boring because, Schumacher's already won the championship. And, they need to make it exciting again. Like John said, I know so many people that do go to Vegas to watch the Olympia. They go to the expo. They love going to the expo, walking around, meet the fans.
I think we got a little freeze up, Johnny. Take me over here, and I think the points that everyone is making are great. And what they are is that, you know, we want excitement in the Olympia. And, you know, I've seen a couple of these self-proclaimed social media gurus out there putting out videos lately saying, oh, the Olympia is boring. You know what? You're all full of crap. Because you know what? The Mr. Olympia weekend is the most exciting competition and contest of the year. Bar none. It hasn't gotten any less exciting because we still want to see who's going to be crowned Mr. Olympia. And this year, we have more titles up for grabs than ever before with the classic physique, women's physique, fitness, figure, bikini, men's open, men's 212, men's classic. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. I love that weekend because it's not bogged down with a lot of, you know, lower level contests that we have to sift through. It's all the best of the best up there. And to me, I love the Olympia weekend. As much as I love going to the Arnold at the beginning of the year, and I think I enjoy the Arnold more so because it's the first show of the year and I'm kind of like ready for bodybuilding again, I love the Olympia because it's the best of the best. And you see the best in the business there. Vegas is a great venue. And I think this year will be just as exciting, if not more, than every other year before that. You have the additional Flex Wheeler into the lineup. You got wild cards like Ramy out there. To me, you're crazy if you think this Olympia is not going to be super exciting. And you're crazy if you think it's not going to be packed to the hilt there, because it will. Because true bodybuilding fans will want to see the show. All right, well, I guess we got him back? Okay, let's go back to our host, Sid.
Muscle.com, RX Television Original Bodybuilding Programming. This is our official mark of the beginning of the Iron Road to the 2017 Olympia, brought to you by Yamamoto Nutrition. Now we go to our third topic, and that is the enigma that we've been discussing for the last 3 to 4 years now, and that is Big Ramy. Last year, he comes out, coached by Chris Aceto, comes out with a totally different look, completely the polar opposite of his 2015 look. Much bigger, fuller look. Last year, a much leaner look. And then he switches hands over to Bader Budai and the Camel Crew, now completely in charge of his prep. Conversation has been, well, who's going to be coaching Ramy? What can they do with him? What is his potential? Will he ever realize his potential? Lee Priest, last year, we spoke to Justin Compton, and he echoed just about the sentiment that every other competitor on the stage had, and that is, the day that Big Ramy comes in completely dialed in is the day that they can all pack it up and go home. Do you ever see that coming to fruition? Do you ever see Big Ramy stepping on that stage, coming in completely dialed in? And will it happen this September?
It goes back to what we said before. The lead-up photos always look fantastic. So how he looks on the data show is going to be another thing. But you know, I'm like John. I love seeing bodybuilders, the big freaks and stuff, but I still want to see a big freaky guy with all that muscle mass in condition with some sort of shape to him. And at the moment, Ramy still does have a bit of shape. We've seen people like Rule back in his day, or even Nasser in his day, where Nasser should have won the 97 Olympia. To me, standing beside Dorian, he blew him out the water. But then they get to a point where they just got so much mass, when they keep adding it to it, they just sort of get blockier and blockier. And to me, then they start looking like a powerlifter that died down on stage. And if they can keep all that mass and come in looking freaky with some symmetry to them, I'm all for it. But like I said, back in the days, you always had, like, there was Akam Albrecht, there was even Rule, there was so many guys that when they came out, all the magazines would put, is he the next Mr. Olympia because of the size and the mass they carry, but yet they never sort of, they got into maybe the top 6 or won a smaller pro show, but the actual big Mr. Olympia, they never quite got that title. Some of these big freaky guys who you thought, going by mass and size alone, they dominated everybody. But so it's hard to say with Ramy. If he comes in, if he could pull off that crisp shape, that granite hard look that Dorian had, he'd be right up there. I could see him being top 3 now. Whether they'd give him the top spot just due to maybe his shape and that, it's hard to say because, bodybuilding is like you said, with the physiques there are today, you've got the freaky guys like him, and sometimes I might not know where to put him because then you've got the symmetrical guys like Cedric and that. Do you go from a bigger, freaky, blocky guy down to a symmetrical guy, back to a blocky guy? So it's hard to, it never seems like there's no order to it. If like Ramy wins, and it should be that sort of physique, 2nd, 3rd and 4th, rather than go Ramy, Dexter, back to someone like a Jay, back to someone like a Cedric. So there's like up and downs with the physique. So it's hard to say. Maybe they they got the classic physique. Maybe they need a freaky physique class now for people like Ramy and them to go into, start a whole new class again.
Unlimited. The unlimited class.
Exactly.
King Kamali, let's go to you because we've never actually gotten your full out analysis of Big Ramy. Now, on your episode of Live, we talked about Big Ramy, and to many here in 2013 and 2014, Big Ramy burst onto the scene, and everybody was talking about him in the sense that we haven't seen someone with that kind of size and that kind of potential. But you being from the Middle East, talking about how in different parts of the Middle East you have Big Ramys walking around. They're out there. Let's get your opinion on Big Ramy as what you've seen the progression been over the last 3 years and what you think we may see of him come this September.
He'll be at his best. I'm sure of that. He's going to be big, full, and hard. But this is bodybuilding, and I know John's going to get a kick out of this. If it was judged in the kitchen, I'd be 8-time Mr. Olympia right now. Take the best kitchen shots with the best lighting ever, Lee's right. John's right. The pictures coming up to the show. I mean, I used to see Dennis James and say, who the fuck can beat this guy? And Dennis would come on stage and hit a back double bicep and be like, oh, what happened? What happened? So this is a sport. Bodybuilding is a comparative sport. You have to stand next to somebody to see where you stand. Okay? Ramy has to stand next to Dexter, has to stand next to Phil, has to stand next to Sarah. It's completely different. Like Lee said, it's this. And what do you like? Which one of these physiques do you like? Ramy cannot come in grainy. He doesn't have it. That's a genetic trait that you either have or you don't. I've always said it. You either separated or you're grainy. Phil Heath is separated. Deep, deep, deep cuts makes him look 3D. Dexter is grainy. Dorian was grainy. They got that grainy skin looking. It's a completely different look. Ramy, when I look at his body, again, I said this to Dave. I went to the Middle East and I saw a bunch of Ramys walking around, and I think we all know why. Well, that's for another show, and we'll discuss that some other time. But they have access to the best shit in the world. Okay, the cleanest, human grade, what have you. Ramy needs to stop thinking about size and start thinking about a complete package. If he brings in a complete package, yes, he will be very, very hard to stand next to. But then again, those other guys also know this. Dexter's not stupid. He knows he's not going to do it. So what is he going to do? Dexter's going to come in even harder. You see what I'm saying? So you have to be smart. Ramy, fantastic size, but he doesn't look like when I saw Ronnie's pictures before that one Olympia in his underwear, in his gym when he was posing, you say to yourself, God damn. When I look at Ramy, I say, okay, huge. He's a monster. But can he beat Phil? I don't think so. When I look at Seth, I say, yeah, he can beat, because I see a beautiful body and the size.
So let me ask it this way. You don't think he could beat Phil ever or this year?
Again, who knows what's going to happen? Who knows which shape they're going to come in? But I don't think – I'll give you the best answer I ever got. I was talking to Dorian, and Dorian once said to me, everyone was telling me if Nasser gets a back, he'll beat me. And then Dorian's response was, Nasser's been training for 20 years. He doesn't have a back. What makes you think in 1 year he's going to get a back? There's only so much you can improve from 1 year. Yes, he's got Bader. Yes, he's got the Camel Crew. Yes, he's got Cormier over there helping him and training, all that stuff. There's only so much improvement that can be done in 1 year. You see what I'm saying? And is that improvement big enough to beat Phil? I don't think so.
John Romano, let's go to you on this one. Big Ramy, because he's dominated. He's dominated Iron Debate ever since Iron Debate came into creation. Seemingly every other episode we have a topic on Big Ramy. Now he's with the Camel Crew, no longer coached by Chris. He's changed hands like 4 times in the last 3 years. What do you project that we're going to see from Big Ramy? Not in terms of where he's going to place, but do you think we're finally going to see his best or a significant progression from last year?
No. Ramy's got too many cooks in the kitchen. It doesn't take that many people to get a bodybuilder ready to compete. It's ridiculous. I mean, he's got like a team of like 39 people that are getting him ready for the Olympia. So I think with all of that input, you get conflicting, you get conflict, you get compliance problems. I mean, I remember when Dennis James was on the show talking about the challenges with Big Ramy. It's unfortunate because I think he's the kind of guy he's the kind of bodybuilder, and I'm just speculating here. He's the kind of bodybuilder that you picture, training like Rocky, in the dungeon, and with one guy yelling at him, and eating just chicken and broccoli, and that's it, and throwing down and being the hardcore badass bodybuilder and coming out and dominating. If Ramy could come out of whatever training camp he is and actually be honed in, perfect, big, hard, grainy, I don't think anybody would ever beat him, and I've been saying that for years. But I just think under his current, the current way he's being handled, I just don't see it happening.
Lee, before we go to Dave, I just want to go back to you. Just in your opinion, your analysis, does Big Ramy remind you of anyone from your competition days? And do you think that we'll see the best of Big Ramy in the near future?
I think he really reminds me of anyone. Like back in my competition days, you had Marcus Rule in around 2000 at his best was massive and freaky.
Yep.
I said NASA at the 97 Olympia in a few shows, NASA came. Ramy is bigger than those guys, but in my era, you had those guys, but a lot of those guys come in condition-wise probably better than what Ramy is. Like I said, going size-wise, no one's ever going to beat Ramy size-wise, but it just comes down to conditioning and putting that whole package together. It's just not one thing over the other. So, like I said, he's a great bodybuilder. He's freaky, he's huge, but as good as he is, even like in the future, I don't see him winning the Olympia, sadly, because, like I said, he might be a second-place runner-up, he might be a third, but giving him the title, we've seen it happen so many times with people like Nasser and bigger guys, they just never got that title. So,
Dave Palumbo, I'm going to go to you now. I feel like this is the third consecutive year I'm asking you the exact same question. Is this the year, in your opinion, that Big Ramy finally puts it all together?
Well, since we've been doing this all day, let's make the comparison. Essentially, Big Ramy is this year's era, or this era's version of Nasser El-Somebody, okay? Except he's better than Nasser. He's got a better back, he's got better proportion, he's got better legs from behind, he's got great glutes and hamstrings. He's better than Nasser. The difference between him and Nasser is that Nasser was calculating, conniving, and crazy intelligent. And so Nasser was able to maximize his gifts. He was able to surround himself with the right people to make him the best he could be. The difference is that Nasser didn't have the tool set that Ramy does. Ramy's got a better tool set. I think he just maybe is not as cutthroat, astutely intelligent, and he doesn't have as much of the drive to be the best at any cost. He's a nice guy, okay? And I think because of that, he allows the people around him to take advantage of him. I'm the same way. I'm so nice sometimes I let people around me take advantage of me, and it doesn't really bother me. But but Ramy's looking to win the biggest title in the world. And I'm not just saying this because Chris is my friend, but I think that Chris Aceto doing his nutrition prep was the best thing that he ever did, was bringing Chris in. He should let the Camel crew and all of Kuwait train him in the gym, work on his posing, promote him. That's what they do well. Give him his supplements. And Chris should do the diet because he's removed from that circus environment there. He can look at things objectively. Chris has worked with big guys like Jay before who had similar genetics, and he's gotten Jay in the best shape of his life. I truly believe that was the winning formula. Were they 100% at the Olympia last year? No, at the prejudging he was a little flat, but at the night show he looked really good, and the tour he was great. I think if they would have duplicated that and tweaked a few things this year, they would have nailed it. And I think it's a very big mistake for Ramy to be switching from person to person. Everyone wants to try to take credit for Big Ramy being, the way he looks. The only person who should be taking credit for anything is Big Ramy, because he's the guy who's living in his body and doing the work in the gym. And he's the one whose parents gave him those great genetics. So, guys, stop riding people's coattails. I hate when I see gurus doing that. They do it all the time. King, I'm sure you'll attest to that. Lee, you'll attest to that. These guys who've never, won Mr. Bumfuck like to say, "Oh, look at what I did for this guy." They refer to them as we did this. We won the Olympia. We won this show. It's not we. It's the competitor himself who's doing it. You're just an advisor. That's it. And you know, the President of the United States has 1 million advisors, but everyone who advises the President of the United States doesn't say, we invaded, we made this decision, we passed health reform, you know. So I think that that's a big problem, that he has too many people advising him. He should have one person doing his diet, because that's the thing that's the most difficult for him, okay?
We're going to have one more final point on Big Ramy. I'm going to go around the horn of this one. You can only be the next big thing for so many years. It seems as if every year we talk about Big Ramy and the potential. Potential gets coaches fired. Is there pressure on Big Ramy to do something special this year? If not, next year we might not be talking about Big Ramy as much. Lee Priest, what do you say?
That's true. Like every year, there's always some new big story coming along, and at the moment, with the photos, it's Big Ramy. And like you said, maybe after this year, some new guy out of the woodwork's going to come along, or some other old guy like myself might make a comeback, and that'll be the news of the century. So, you know, but as Kamali said, with the legs going and stuff, you know, maybe there's a wheelchair division for me. I can make a comeback in, but, you know. Yeah, but, you know, like I said, after this year, who knows what's going to happen. And we're always planning ahead too, and with bodybuilding, it's always hard to say, touch wood, nothing bad ever happens to bodybuilders, but in this sport, anything can happen, whether it be injuries, anything like that. So, you know, the next big thing could be down and out for a couple of years just due to injuries and stuff. But, you know, if all health goes well, like I said, you've only got so long before people stop talking about you, and I think if he comes in looking freaky year after year and he doesn't crack it, they're going to move on to something else.
King Kamali, again, if Big Ramy comes in this year, finishes top 5, finishes top 6, but doesn't really wow anyone, doesn't really impress or progress from last year, is there going to be a point in time where fans just lose a little bit of interest and stop referring to him as that next big thing in bodybuilding?
No, because this is still a bodybuilding. This is still the freak show. People love the freaks. And Ramy will, if he's smart, if he doesn't do that well at the Olympia, he would jump into the Arnold Classic, win the Arnold, and he'll be right back into the mix. Yeah. Simple.
John Romano?
I mean, I say simple. It's not that simple. I say simple because Dave and I discussed this. He doesn't have to worry about money. He doesn't have to worry about drugs. He doesn't have to worry about supplements. He doesn't have to worry about gym memberships. He doesn't have to worry about anything. Just eat, sleep, and train. And I'll provide you with trainers, with this. And I've been to the Middle East. You know, when you go to the Middle East gyms, when you finish training, I don't know if Lee or John have been to the Middle East to these gyms, but they feed you. I mean, there's a kitchen right there. They put a steak in front of you, a filet mignon. You eat. 50 people are standing behind you, telling you how great you are, giving you a massage, and then you go and then you take a nap on a $10,000 gold bed, and then you wake up, and then somebody else puts another plate of food in front of you and gives you a massage. I mean, that's how it is. That's why they look the way they do. And then on top of all that, there's another thing I discussed with Dave. At the end of the day, you walk into any pharmacy, you just walk in with $10 and you walk out with 10 IUs of growth and 2 bottles of test. It's beautiful, man. So he's got every advantage in the world. But like John said, if he was like, put Big Ramy in Blood and Guts, that legendary video, in a dungeon with somebody in your face screaming and spitting in your face, and what we all saw Dorian went through, I mean, that legendary shit, yeah, Ramy will be untouchable. But unfortunately, we don't have that.
John, let me phrase it in this way. Is there pressure on Big Ramy? Yeah, given his freakish size, freakish physique, he will always be an area of interest. But from the competition perspective and what we think, where he could potentially place, is there pressure on him to do something this year to improve, to significantly have a better showing than in previous years?
I don't think the pressure is any more or less. I think the expectation is what's the highest. You know, so we've seen him enough now to know and to generate the opinions that we have that he's potentially one of the greatest. He's potentially a Mr. Olympia. He's potentially able to beat Phil. He's got all this potential, and you know, we've seen him 4 or 5 times now, and he hasn't lived up to it. You know, I agree with Dave. The best he ever looked was when he worked with Chris last year. I think I agree, it's a huge mistake that he's bouncing around from, guru to guru and really relying, I think, too much on his support system and not enough on the blood and guts aspect of getting ready for a show like this. I don't think the way it appears to me, because I don't know the situation as well as maybe King does, but it appears to me that he's being coddled. And I don't see guys being coddled or all too caught up with how much pressure they're under. So if he blows it this year, he'll come back next year unless we get somebody else. Unless we get somebody else bigger than him, leaner than him, freakier than him, stronger than him, more put together than him, more dominant than him. If we get somebody else that's going to push him off to the side if he doesn't perform, then yeah. But I think right now he's the biggest thing we got going. So I mean, he's got everything he's ever going to need. So there's no inherent pressure on him except the fact that he's supposed to do what he's supposed to do. If he's not going to do it, what are they going to do to him? They're going to give him the same thing next year. So, I don't see him under any pressure at all. I see that the industry is expecting that he's gonna right. This would be a great time to do it, pull it together, and come across. But I haven't seen the Camel Crew, produce anything that phenomenal yet anyway. So I don't have a lot of confidence in how he's being handled and how he's being prepped. And I think I agree. Like I said before, I agree with Dave. I think taking Chris Aceto out of the picture was a tremendous mistake. And I think you're going to see the fruits of that this year at the Olympia. I think you're going to see what a mistake that was.
Dave, final word on this one. Do you sense any pressure or expectations on Big Ramy going into this Olympia?
Expectations. Of course there's pressure. There's a tremendous amount of money being invested in Big Ramy. These pictures, that we have up on the screen are from 4 hours ago. I mean, he looks good. I mean, but he's not obviously in Olympia shape yet. And I think that if they bring him in too big again and he doesn't place well, I think that's a tremendous disappointment. Because think about how many people are invested in helping Ramy right now, from the Cormiers that they flew out there to was posing with them and to train him in the gym, to the diet guys that are out there, to the people cooking his food, to Bader, putting his reputation on the line with this, and that's got to be a tremendous amount of pressure on Ramy's back, because Ramy, is depending on these people. They're supporting him, so he doesn't want to let them down, and he's listening to them. So, yeah, there is pressure on Ramy, even though he doesn't have a real job and he has no financial worries. There's pressure for him to perform, and I think that he's troubled by the fact that he had to leave Chris. I know, I've seen the way he interacts with Chris. I know that he had a very good friendship with him and relationship, and I think he felt pressure to leave because of loyalty to what Bader did. And let's face it, Bader put this guy on the map. Bader supported him financially. Bader gave him a ton of opportunities. And, he's the Oxygen Gym representative, really, if you think about it. If Oxygen Gym has a sponsored athlete, it's Big Ramy. So, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on him, of course. And sometimes pressure is a terrible thing for people who don't perform well under pressure. You put pressure on Jay Cutler, he becomes his best. You put pressure on Phil Heath, he brings out their best. Some guys I think like Cedric, you put pressure on him and he self-destructs. That's why he's in hiding now, and you're not hearing a word from him or a peep, because he does better when there's less pressure on him. So I think there's pressure on Ramy, and I hope that he rises to the occasion, because I think he's one of the most talented bodybuilders out there.
On that note, that's going to do for this episode of Iron Debate. Had a lot of fun. Lee, Priest, King Kamali, we need to have you guys back on over the course of the next few weeks as we preview the upcoming 2017 Mr. Olympia. For Dave Palumbo, John Romano, King Kamali, Lee Priest, and our producer, Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.